Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale from Apple Podcasts.
Ooh, we fancy.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central. Round the Hay Bale is brought to you by...
With gardening season at an end, Kelzyme certified organic products are still what your soil needs.
From overwintering fruit trees to preparing your soil for spring, Kelzyme's calcium-based fertilizer gives the essential minerals they need to thrive.
Applying Kelzyme to agricultural soils and water has been proven to increase plant and crop yields while making vegetables and grains healthier and more nutritious.
In addition, Kelzyme can help restore the nutrient balance in animals when they are fed plants grown using Kelzyme in both soil and water.
To check out all of Kelzyme's organic products, visit kelzyme.com and use the promo code HAYBALE for 10% off your purchase.
Grab a cup of joe and gather round the hay bale with your hosts, Alicia from Country Mama Musings, Casey from Ormsby Farms, Lisa from Yogi Hollow Farm, and Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Now, here they are. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hello and welcome to Round the Hay Bale. I'm Alicia.
I'm Casey.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Monica.
On today's episode, class is in session, y'all. We're talking about homesteading knowledge from us here at the Hay Bale, but also from our dear friend Sandy over at Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona.
But before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Kelzyme, so don't forget to Kelzyme the crap out of your plants.
Again, a huge thank you to Kelzyme. Let's start off by welcoming back Sandy. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us again here at the Hay Bale. We're so glad to have you.
I'm so excited. Thank you again for inviting me back.
Always, always. You know, we just love you here at the Hay Bale, and you always have so many wonderful things to share with us. And today's episode is about important homesteading knowledge for us. So I'm going to just put the ball in your court and have you start sharing with us some homesteading knowledge that you would like to share with not only us here at the Hay Bale, but all of our wonderful listeners.
Well, one of the things I would say is that it's the perfect time of the year to plant your garlic for next year. And so you're probably pulling all your garlic out right now. And it is just a perfect time to take some of those cloves and put them back into your soil.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was just discussing that with someone that this is the first year. I talk about it every year, but I never get them in the ground. And this is the first year I really want to make a real concerted effort to get that garlic in the ground. I've already picked out a raised garden bed because I do all of my gardening in raised garden beds here. And I've picked one out. I'm going to get it all ready and I'm going to put some hardneck garlic in this year and see how I do. So that's a great tip.
Yeah, I went to the local farmer's market and I bought a huge bulb of garlic, but I'm hoping that it's not sprayed because it was obviously at the farmer's market and local. So I just planted all the cloves because it was my understanding you have to get it in before frost, and we're due to have a frost next week.
Well, what you want it to do is you want it to start sending some roots out, even if it doesn't come above the ground. And even if it has a frost, as long as it's not freezing, that garlic will still grow for a while, even if you don't see anything. So us in the north, Lisa and I, putting straw over top or chopped up leaves so it has a little bit of mulch through the winter, that will help it. And we plant our garlic deeper than you would in Texas. You know, in Texas, you could do it an inch and a half, where we do it 3 or 4 inches deep.
That's a great tip. I'm glad to know. I'm glad to know how far we need, because I got myself a new dibbler, and I'm just going to go for that 3 to 4 inch mark, and I'm just going to put a whole bunch of little cloves in my raised garden bed. Now, one thing I do want to ask you though, because I know I need to insulate it, like you said, covering with straw or leaves. I don't have straw, but I have tons and tons of old alfalfa. Can I use that to insulate as well?
You can use any kind of hay, just
Okay.
as long as you want anywhere from 4 inches to 6 inches of mulch on top, depending on how cold you get in the wintertime. The hard part about garlic in the north is if you plant it too shallow, we have frosts and thaws and it heaves, and it can literally push that clove up to the surface, and you don't want that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm up here in Iowa, so it's going to be cold. And I know about that heaving because it actually, we will have the cold and then the thaw, and it will heave rocks the size of watermelons right out of the middle of our roads out here, our dirt roads. So I know what you're speaking of. So I wouldn't want that to happen to my garlic. So that's a wonderful thing to know as well, is make sure you plant at the appropriate depth. So that's awesome. What else have you got to share with us, Sandy?
Okay, I was going to ask about the garlic, Sandy. So real quick, just when you were
Yeah, the
talking
Southerners want to know now.
Well, yeah, planting, we were talking, when you said something about planting 1 inch, like in Texas, and I'm like taking notes. So I was listening, but I was like, I can't speak yet. I'm writing. I wanted to ask, so I know that there's 2 different types of garlic. There's the hard neck and then the soft neck. And
Yes.
Alicia made a comment that she was going to plant the hard neck, but I had heard that there's a specific type that you plant in like the warmer climates. Like I'm in zone 8A. So I don't want to plant the hard neck. I want to plant like the soft neck here. That's like better for my climate, I think.
Well, you have 2 options. If you're just going to plant it in the ground, do the soft neck.
Okay.
But if you want to be a little more experimental, you can get hard neck garlic, put it in your freezer for a while, so it thinks it's winter.
What?
And then you can plant it, March time, so, February, March. So it thinks it went through 3 months of winter, but it really didn't.
Wow. Okay. Because see, when everything that I've seen for garlic, I know my mind is being blown. So everything I've seen for garlic for Texas, is you can plant February, March. That's a normal time to plant for us. It's February, March. March is like, they're saying February, end of February, early March is like the earliest time you want to plant it. But they're saying the very latest time you want to plant it to get a harvest at all is September. Because like they are even suggesting you could plant it all throughout the summer. And I haven't even touched garlic. I've never actually tried it here in Texas, but since I did okay with onions, I'm thinking I need to do garlic. So now it's September here when we're recording this, and now I need to get my garlic in the ground. For other climates, other zones, they can wait a little longer, is what you're saying.
Right. Like right now, you could plant soft neck garlic.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Hard neck garlic always needs that cold. So you could plant it now. You could plant another batch in February, March, because you would be harvesting and then you can just replace it.
Okay. That makes sense.
So Sandy, let me ask you a question. Should I go out and dig up my garlic that I planted 2 inches deep? Because all the resources that I read told me 2 inches was sufficient, and it's not.
Honestly, it isn't. Your option to do, since you already planted it, like I wouldn't want to have to dig through my soil. So
I know where it is.
Oh, okay. But for those who may have done that and they didn't realize, you can always put some soil on top.
Okay.
You don't have to, so you planted it 2 inches, just put 1 or 2 inches of soil on top.
And
anything that makes
mulching
it
it
easier.
Okay. And mulching it. So even if I mulched it heavier than most people did, that's not going to be sufficient, correct?
It just depends on, our winters can be so crazy up here. And if we have a lot of thaws and freezing, it's just going to push it up and push it up and push it up. And so I haven't planted less than 4 inches in 30 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I asked because I have bales and bales of straw. So, okay. So I'll do that. Thank you.
You know what you might do also, I don't know how windy your property is, but if it seems like it's, it's a windy winter, putting over welded wire or hog panel over top of that, just to hold that straw down where you want it.
I have to do that so the chickens don't decimate it.
I was going to say for squirrels too. Who wants squirrels digging in there? I had so many squirrels planting walnuts all over the farm. They destroyed a lot of my garden this year. I'd hate to put all the garlic in and then have the squirrels go in to plant a bunch of walnuts and kick the garlic out. So I like the idea of putting something over it like the hardware cloth.
Yeah, and I have actually seen friends that put, if they have squirrel problems or chipmunks or voles, they'll actually put the welded wire right on the soil, then put the mulch, and then put something to hold the mulch down. Just because those squirrels, they just want to dig everything. And right now, I've finished pulling up my garlic, and there's really a couple schools of thought on if you should cut your scapes off on a hardneck garlic, or should you not cut your scapes off. And there's been a whole bunch of trials in California, and because they didn't want to lose the size of the actual bulb. And people used to say, if you don't cut that, in fact, I've told people, if you don't cut that off, your bulb is going to be smaller. But they did all kinds of trials, and it really wasn't true. And so
Sandy, can you share for our listeners who may not know what a scape is? Because I know that I recently just learned that was a couple of years ago. So we have some people who are just new to this. They might not even know what you're talking about. Can you explain what the scape is?
Okay, on a hardneck garlic, not on a soft neck, just a hard neck. In the center will come up a kind of like a hard stem. It has a flower on the end, and it'll literally curl, and then it'll uncurl itself, and it'll stand straight up. And they had always said, you got to cut that, which is a nice thing to do. You can stir fry it, you can make pesto out of it, you can just do all kinds of stuff with it because it tastes just like garlic. But they've done a lot of testing lately, and as long as your soil is healthy, it will make the garlic store months longer if you don't cut that off. So it's actually, it's not drying out the garlic, it is hardening off the garlic. And so if you don't cut your scapes off, you're good. If you cut them off because you want to use them, it's totally okay too. But it's just different ways to look at it.
Well, I think that's neat because then it's dual purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. And I am looking forward to some really nice pesto out of a garlic scape. That's one of the things I've been like waiting for, but I just haven't planted any garlic yet. So I think I really need to do that this year. So thank you for these great tips.
Sure. Another thing you're probably doing right now is you're probably lifting up bulbs out of your garden if you're in the north and it's going to get cold, because you want to be able to, certain ones, tulips, daffodils, they'll stay in the soil. But if you want to save your gladiolas, different ones that have rhizomes, you may have to lift up if you want them to survive. And you just put them cold storage, garage, basement, with just a little bit of damp peat moss or damp sawdust, and it will let those be okay all winter.
That's wonderful to know, because I have tulips and I just leave them alone. They were here when I bought the property, but I haven't looked into putting any other bulbs in. But now I know what not to plant, because this mama doesn't want to be digging up bulbs. What else are you doing out at your place, Sandy, to get ready for fall?
Well, we're pulling up some plants. We actually are going to have warm weather till the end of September, it looks like. And so I'm leaving my salary for a while. My potatoes aren't quite ready, and so I'm just going to let them get a little bit bigger before. My plants are still good. They haven't hardly started dying back. I only had a couple of plants that started to die back. And my peppers are literally over 3 feet tall now, and they are just like flowering and producing like crazy. And that is so unusual for September for us. But we've had 100 degrees, 90 degrees. This week is the coolest we've had, and it's in the 70s and 80s. And so you just have to be flexible as a gardener. If the weather looks like it's going to change, you are pulling stuff out of your garden. Or on my raised beds, I have PVC pipes, and I have plastic that I can put over if it's going to be cold. I have screen that I put over if it's going to hail. So it just can extend my season, which I really appreciate. Like, I haven't pulled my any of my squash or pumpkin plants because they're still growing. And so usually by now I've picked up off every pumpkin that I have. But I'm okay with that. I'm enjoying the nice weather in September.
That's incredible. I'm moving to Wyoming. We had 47 for a high the other day.
Oh.
And we've had 30s at night already. Not frost, but we've had like 36 at night. I'm definitely moving to Wyoming.
Well, last weekend when I went across the Bighorns, we did have snow. So I did get to see snow, so that was fun. But it didn't frost or anything here in my part of Wyoming, and so it's been fabulous. Now, I am doing some things to get ready to go to Arizona, because I'm starting a few little seedlings, because I'm growing some giant vegetables down in Arizona this year. So the cabbage is supposed to be about 3 feet across, the leaves, and the head is supposed to weigh anywhere up to 30 or 40 pounds. So we'll see if I can get them to grow that way.
Oh my goodness.
I was about to say that's a lot of egg rolls.
I was going to say, okay, so how are you going to preserve? What are you going to do if you had a cabbage this big, or 4 cabbages this big? How would you preserve that? How would you use it before it goes bad?
Well, we always like making sauerkraut.
Okay.
We love sauerkraut. I love coleslaw. We made coleslaw this morning because it's just a favorite at our house. Mm-hmm. But most of the time when I have extra, it's going into different types of sauerkraut. I like to have fun and add different things, like, you always have your carrots and your cabbage, your salt, but I like to add herbs with them. I like to add juniper berries. I like to add apples to different ones. And, I love that whole fermentation, and I like to make kimchi, and you use cabbage and kimchi. So my dad loves steamed cabbage, so they'll get parts of them. But last year I had cauliflowers that the circumference were 21 to 27 inches. That is a big cauliflower.
I remember that. I remember seeing pictures of that. That's wild. My mom used to put in her sauerkraut. Now, she didn't ferment it, but she would take sauerkraut, and it was like a family recipe, but she would put caraway seeds in it when we fried it. It was really good.
Yeah. Cabbage to me is one of those comfort foods. I know there's people that don't like cabbage. They don't want to try it, but there are so many things you can do, from egg rolls to sauerkraut to adding it in soups. I like to dehydrate and then powder it in my Vitamix, and I can just add it anytime I want to. You can add it, especially if your kids don't like cabbage, you can add it even into their scrambled eggs, and they will never know that you're adding that in there.
Here's the thing. My people will see me dehydrating it, and they're going to be like, what are you doing with that dehydrator, Mom? Why are you dehydrating cabbage? And I'm going to be like, I'm going to be like, oh, no reason. Don't worry about it. Mind your own business. And they're going to figure it out.
No.
Soup.
I was going to say, I've done this to Ryan. Hopefully he doesn't listen to our podcast. I'll find out. So I did this with kale. Someone gave me a ton of kale, and I dehydrated it, and I made kale powder. Mm-hmm. And he said, what'd you make? And I said, kale powder. And I threw it all back in the spice cabinet and left it there for a while. And then I've been adding it slowly to things. Not a clue. I just keep putting it back there. so he doesn't see it going down.
I just feel like cabbage is a strong flavor. Like it can have a strong flavor. I like it. And out of the 8 kids that eat here, or 9 because of my daughter-in-law, I want to say out of the 9 kids, probably 6 of them, maybe 5 of them like it. So I've got majority rules on that. But it's still one of those things that if I try to sneak it in there, I feel like I can never eat my cabbage up enough or use it in enough things to not waste it. I almost always throw ahead to the pigs. Now it's never to waste because my animals will eat it, but I feel like I need to do more with it. So, I mean, dehydrating is such a cool idea, but I'm nervous, but I mean,
Monica, if they question it, you just tell them that you're dehydrating a bunch of cabbage to supplement your animal feed.
Yeah.
And if they want to know where it went, you just say, I mixed it in with the turkey feed, or I mixed it in with the chicken feed.
Well,
and
I
they
do
never
consider
know.
my
I
kids
mixed it in
animals
with
sometimes,
kid
so I can
feed.
just say.
Me too. Mix it with your kid feed.
And one of the things about cabbage, especially red cabbage, when you dehydrate it, the starches turn to sugar and it's very sweet like candy.
I was about to say, I have
Well,
heard
that sounds
that.
like a plan then. Is that red cabbage and purple cabbage similar? Are they the same?
For the most part, there are some slight variations, but depending on what you grow, a lot of it will be either red or kind of purplish blue based on your soil. The more acidic, the more red it will be, the more alkaline, the more purple it will be.
Okay, because I definitely got some purple cabbage this year, and the kids really liked the way it looked, and we used it just like I used regular cabbage, and it made some of our stuff really pretty when we were, making, coleslaw and different things. But they were concerned. They're like, "Why is it purple?" I'm like, "It's just the purple cabbage. It's just what I'm growing." But it was really pretty to put in the stuff.
It is. It is pretty. I was going to say, Monica, you're mentioning it for your kids. I mentioned that stuff for my 30-year-old brother. That when we decide for the year what to put in, well, funny true story, when we were planning our garden for this year and actually picking out as a family, now I'm talking about 4 grown adults, I'm not talking about any kids. The youngest person is my brother and he's in his 30s. We picked it and I was like, okay, now brother Chris, why are we choosing cabbage when you do not eat cabbage? He was like, I like the color. I said, oh, that's a good reason. I said, is there any other reason? And he was like, yeah, egg rolls. So when you had said it before, that was the reason that my adult brother said he wanted cabbage, was for egg rolls. So that was my story for cabbage.
I just want to say that Sandy had me at red cabbage tasting like candy. I want to know, when you dehydrate it, what do you use it for? Do you just eat it raw, like a candy, or what do you put it in?
Lots of times I'll just eat it raw. Otherwise, I'll just throw it in soups and it rehydrates itself. It's like when you dehydrate mushrooms, that becomes sweeter and it's like candy. And those, I just eat and eat and eat.
Because I do want to do some purple cabbage. I'm not a big cabbage fan, but I will put it in soups. And I would like to make like a vegetarian black bean lumpia with the Philippine egg rolls. I love those. I learned how to make those years ago, but with sausage and hamburger, and I won't eat that anymore. But a black bean burger mix with some of that cabbage would make a really nice lumpia. So I might look into doing that. So I might consider adding cabbage to my garden repertoire.
And a lot of times people just don't realize the variety of recipes that can have cabbage in them. So if you check out at the library, recipe books, cookbooks from Asian countries, they just use cabbage so much in so many different ways, and it can just really expand your thinking of, oh, I could do this with cabbage. Because a lot of times we just think we have it at St. Patrick's Day, we have it in some coleslaw, but there's just so many more things, and it's a great hardy plant that you can grow all over the place.
I will say too, though, the cabbage that I've grown in the past, and I've grown some really big cabbage here. I'm really good at cabbage, so I've got that down pat. But I will say that it keeps really well in the refrigerator, though. Even here with me in Texas, I had cabbage in the refrigerator clear through part of my winter last year until Eric was like, hey, there's a big head of cabbage in the back of the fridge. And I'm like, oh, is there really? I was so excited, cooked it up and it was fine. I mean, like the outside, like 3 layers of leaves were a little bit like, help me. But they were like a little bit sad because they had been in the, fridge for a little bit, but otherwise it was still fresh and it was still good. And I was very pleased. But I mean, based upon just, we were talking about different things and, different things you're putting in your garden, based upon that, when you are going to plant things, because I know you leave from one climate and one zone to go to another, when you start to look at what you're going to grow, what do you base your growing future off of? Like, how do you decide, oh, I'm going to grow these plants or this plant, or I'm going to do this? Is it what you like to eat, or is it just what you like to look at, or what do you base it off of, just in general? It might help out some of our listeners.
Well, I'm always going to plant more plants that I know we will eat for sure. But I always like to do some kind of different experimental varieties. People are always giving you seeds, try these ones. And so why not try them? And then we have a fabulous seed library here in Gillette. And you go in there and there are file drawers full of seeds and you can take them for free. And so we can try all kinds of different varieties that you may not have, because, you look at a package of seed and it can cost you anywhere from $2 to $5. But if you have those options, and a lot of cities now have seed libraries, and so you can try a lot of different things. So I always want to try new beans because I love growing soup beans, so we like green beans, we like yellow beans, but I have jars of multicolored beans because I like to mix them all together. And then I add them with rice and I add them with different things. So I'm always looking for the next best bean. So if anybody knows a great bean that I should try. And I like keeping lists. So at the end of the season, so September is usually my time. I go through and I say, okay, this grew well, this didn't grow well. But because of my grandmother, she saved her seeds in a root cellar in Nebraska. But she would always write cool, wet summer, hot, dry summer. And so if the Farmer's Almanac told her that it was going to be a wet summer, those were the seeds that she planted. So that made me, when I put my list, I'll say how the summer was, so that when I go again, and if that doesn't really grow very well when it's, too hot, I just wait a different summer and grow those ones, because seeds will last. It's not like that after a year, you got to throw those seeds out. There are seeds that my friend grew, some seeds from 1976, tomato seeds, and they sprouted.
Wow, that's amazing. I know when you were talking about the seed library, I have to admit, I've never heard of that. I am absolutely amazed and intrigued. And for our listeners and for me, where would someone turn to find out if their community has a seed library? Would it be the extension office, or how would you go about finding that information?
Well, here it's the master gardeners that are doing them, but it is in our extension office. But there are some actual book libraries that have little sections across the country that have a seed library too. So I would first call your county extension office. If you know any master gardeners, ask them if they have a seed library. You could call the county or the city, tell them that you're looking for a seed library. But there is a lot of stores that will donate their seeds that they have at the end of the year to a free seed library. And not all of them will, but some of them will. And then there's a lot of companies that will send you the year before seeds, because they're always going to sell their newest seeds. And a lot of times they have extra stock. And so they will donate those to seed libraries.
I think this is so intriguing. I wrote it down, visit seed library. That's going to be on my agenda over the next several weeks. I have to find out all about it.
I think also, Alicia, think about the seed libraries that you could visit while you're on your trip.
I
Mhm.
know.
Because if you actually, so when she said seed library, I was like, oh, I'm going to Google this because that's what I do. And so I like Googled seed library near Dallas, Texas. And what do you know? Dallas Public Library has a seed library where it says
Wow.
they encourage you to check out seeds and plant them in your garden. After they go to harvest, we encourage you to let them go to seed and return some of the seeds, but
Mhm.
obviously you don't have to do it. But they encourage you to, if you take some, grow it and see how it grows and then donate some back. And I'm like, what? That is the most amazing thing. They have brochures and a donation form and all the things. Plus, they have all the different lists of the local community gardens in the area for the Dallas area. So it's kind of cool. Now, Dallas is not super close to me, but if you live near a major city, I'm sure it's going to be there. But the smaller towns, I'm sure have something, but that's going to be some research, I think, for me. But that's a really, really neat thing. I mean, people have those little book libraries, right? You have them on the
Mhm.
corners. Wouldn't that be neat if you could have a little seed library at your local feed store? I mean,
Yes.
they
Mhm.
obviously want to sell you seeds, but wouldn't it be cool if they had a little portion of the people that maybe couldn't afford the seeds that they would be able to have a little seed exchange? So that's neat.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
love this.
Monica,
And
I'm
another
seeing at
thing that
Georgia
some of the
Public.
master,
Oh, so I'm sorry, Sandy. I was just going to say that Georgia Public
nope.
Libraries is the same way. I'm Googling as Monica was Googling. And growing food and more at Georgia Public Library is the highlight topic of the Georgia Public Library service for seed libraries, because I've never heard of that either. So how interesting.
Well, another thing that some of the master gardeners do, you're buying a packet of seeds and you got 50, 100, 300 seeds in that packet. So the master gardeners here will save a certain amount and then they'll donate the rest of that packet. And we have envelopes down at our seed library that you fill out a little form, say what it is, and the sticker part goes onto the envelope. And it's another way to share some extra seeds.
That's really cool. I was looking for our closest one. It's Yankton. So it's about 6 hours away. But I'm going to check the extension office.
Yeah,
That's
but
really cool, though.
in Rapid City by you,
Uh-huh.
every year they have a seed exchange, and that's
Oh,
put
yeah?
on by the master gardeners, and it's usually at your library in Rapid City. And even if you don't bring your own seeds, they'll still give you seeds to take home.
Good to know. Good to know. Thank you.
Gardeners are the best, aren't they? So giving. Everybody's so giving because we understand the value in it. Not that I have given seeds. As a matter of fact, I think everybody on this panel has received some kind of seed from me. Except for Sandy. I'm not sure if I sent Sandy any, but I think I sent everybody else some marigold seeds and some zinnia seeds.
I got some tomato seeds from Sandy that I'm excited to plant this coming spring. So like
Ooh.
some big tomatoes. So I'm excited to be able to put them in my garden and try new seeds. So yeah, I mean, that's the
Nice.
thing. So I based off of what I eat as well. Like we were talking about, what do you put in your garden for the reasons why I like the idea of trying to plant something new with having kids, and I'm homeschooling my kids. We always try like experiment things. Sometimes I can really get them in it and involved with what I'm planting in the garden. And it seems like they really like to eat more of the fresh garden items when they've had a hand planting it. And it's really fun to get them involved because I have kids that don't really like to eat raw tomatoes, but when I'm growing cherry tomatoes and I'm out there planting them and they're helping me put them in the ground, and then they come through and they're like, "What are you eating, Mom?" And I'm like, "Oh, cherry tomato. Do you want to try it?" And they're like, "Well," and I'm like, "You planted this." They're more apt to take it and pop it in their mouth. Now, sometimes they spit it right back out. But the point is that they tried it, and that's half the battle, I think, when it comes to little kids. I mean, I'm dealing with like 6 and 8-year-olds that, have opinions that are big.
I do
But
the
yeah, I
same
mean,
thing.
I really like to plant things that we are going to eat, but it's kind of neat to try some things that maybe we won't eat. And that's okay too. I planted a whole mess of mustard greens this year and we ate them, but not like all of them. I mean, like, there were so many plants. I put in way too many mustard green plants, but they were super fun to grow and they were really pretty. So I just let them bolt and collected a mess of seeds. And they actually, they bolted, some of the plants bolted and they started growing back again. Like this past week after we get a bunch of rain, I was shocked. I'm like, wait a second, you're not supposed to be growing right now. You're supposed to be dead. But it was really cool because, it's something we like, it's something we'll eat, but we'll never eat as much as I grow. But it's really been fun to watch the process and try it. So yeah, that's kind of cool.
One of the other things I like to do is Asian countries eat more of the actual vegetable than we do, like radishes. We eat the radish. And so I like to do research like across Asia, China, Japan. They not only eat the actual radish, they eat the stems, they eat the leaves. And then when the pods, they make the pods after they flower, they eat those too. So I started doing that. And people that can't actually eat radishes, it kind of upsets their stomach, can usually eat the pods. And I've pickled the pods, I throw them in salads, I eat them when I'm just out in the garden. And I like the idea of not letting any of it go to waste. And anything that's left that I haven't been able to do, it's going to go to the compost, it's going to go to the chickens. I like to chop and drop and just let the plants biodegrade right where they are also. It doesn't take long before the compost bins are full, and so then it's chop and drop.
Yeah, agreed. I'm glad you said that, because I always gave like the greens to my chickens, or my animals. They always enjoyed them. And recently, somebody had on Instagram how they put beet greens, which I knew you could eat, but carrot greens, beet greens and carrot greens in their broth. And they said the flavor was amazing. So I admit I gave the carrot greens because that crop was a fail, but I gave those to the chickens because they enjoyed them. But I am saving all my beet greens by freezing them. So that way I can add them into broth every time I make a batch.
And you can take those tops on your carrots and just add them to your salad. Don't add a huge amount because it can be overpowering, but you can also dry them, grind them up, and use them as flour.
Fascinating. I've seen people do that with zucchini, make flour out of zucchini. That's wild.
But it's interesting how many vegetables you could actually dry, grind them up, and even if you don't use it completely, part of it's regular flour and part of it's that ground up flour from your carrot tops or zucchinis, or there's just a lot of things you can add in there and to supplement if you don't have a lot of flour.
Absolutely. And what I really like about it is, a lot of the nightshade family, the plants are toxic to animals. So I hate it because the beet greens always go to waste if we're not eating them. So that's what I like, we're able to use them because I know that, when it comes to say the cauliflower plants, the broccoli plants, the animals love them, so it's just nice to be able to use them as food.
Right.
For us.
If I'm not sure, I'm always looking up, can my chickens eat this?
Me too.
Yep. I just trimmed my banana leaves because we brought my banana tree in, and chickens can eat banana leaves. Who knew?
Yeah. It's funny because I just literally created a booklet for the new owners of the piglets for when they pick them up. And one of the things on there was a list of things that were toxic to pigs. And I included in there, the same thing that I do, which is get in the habit of, before you give anything to your animal, Google it and make sure that you can give it to them.
Yeah, because you don't want them to get sick. You don't want to have them die from some kind of toxic level that just because we could eat it doesn't mean they can eat it. And so you just have to be careful because they are part of your homestead. And so you want them to be healthy and you want your whole homestead to be successful.
And bringing up the toxicity, I think is so important because I know that there are some homesteading pages and some chicken groups that I belong to on different social media formats, and it never fails. Somebody will pop in and say, I feed this to my chickens all the time and they're still alive. Well, that's great because there's a difference between something that poisons you or your animals and something that is toxic to you and your animals. A poison can knock you out right away, but the toxins, they build up over time, and then it will have that negative effect. And just because somebody says, well, I fed a bunch of onions to my chickens and they're still alive. Okay, you lucked out, but you're building up those toxins. You just can't keep throwing onions to your chickens. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand there's a difference between poisoning and toxins. So really look up, and if you have somebody, a well-meaning neighbor or friend or family member that says, I give that to my animals, or I give that to my chickens all the time, do your research and know the difference between a poison and a toxin.
That's a great point, Alicia. And you actually read my mind, because I was going to say, if I say I have not a great year of broccoli, and I pull out all my plants and I want to give, say, the pigs all that broccoli, maybe broccoli. And this is just an example. I'm not saying it's broccoli, but my point is some of those things you can only give a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give a lot. It's fine in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you suddenly upset the whole biochemistry and give them 6 rows of broccoli, it's a different story. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you brought that point up.
That's like the difference between me enjoying, well, I shouldn't say me. That's like the difference between your dad enjoying a bran muffin for breakfast and then sitting down watching TV and eating 2 boxes of Raisin Bran. You're going to know the difference.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also
And
important
everybody
to point
pays.
out- I think it's also important to point out whether or not animals have grown up with a certain food or a certain plant versus whether they have just now started, you're introducing it to their diet. You said one thing, it's one thing about introducing it in large quantities, but have they grown up that way? We have rabbits that we raise, and our rabbits are not really raised on the grass. They're not eating a lot of grass. They're not eating a lot of greens. They're eating the pellets that are specifically made for their body to digest. And we have a friend who raises hers on the ground. She raises it. She gives it lots of greens. And, Eric started saying, hey, Eric, hey, Abigail, who is in charge of our rabbits, we need to start feeding them more, greens. We need to start doing this. And she's like, yeah, but we have to do it slowly, because if we start introducing those things, they're not raised on that, and while, Mary's cows or her pigs or her chickens and rabbits and all that may be raised on those things and those items, their bodies are more used to it. You can't just start throwing that stuff at your animals all of a sudden, whether it's a small quantity or large quantity. You have to be careful about introducing them and watching them as they adjust to it. Even in smaller quantities, watch your animals, because when you're introducing anything new, it's going to cause a change too. And like I said, we don't really give greens to our rabbits unless absolutely necessary, but we started, or unless we have a lot of extra and they want it. Sometimes we do give it to them that way, but by not giving it to them, we're able to watch and control what their output is much better than if we just give them whatever freely. So
Right. And one of the other things to think about is if one of your neighbors gives you, they have extra leaves or greens or something, and they're just giving them to you to feed their animals, you really need to know if they're using pesticides, herbicides, because not all vegetables are created equal, even down to the soil level. Some vegetables will have much more nutrients than others because of the soil and the uptake that those plants got.
yeah, and we test our hay every year. When we get our hay, we don't have like a special, there's no special test on our hay. It's just we grab a bale from wherever we're getting it. We try not to buy a large quantity right away. We try to buy a few small bales. And one of the first things that Eric does is he takes a handful right out of the center. Well, first he puts his hand in the center to see if he can even get into that center of the bale. If he can't get to the center of the bale, it's packed real tight. He smells the hay, and then he takes the hay, and then he'll take a handful and go find one of the picky eaters of our cows, and he will start to hand it to them to see if they're going to take it. If they're not eating it and they're not enjoying it and they're leaving a lot of it on the ground or they're not going back for it, it's not something we're going to continue to give them. We can ask all we want. Was this hay fertilized? Is this grass fertilized grass? Do you use anything? And they can say no. But just because, Farmer Bob didn't fertilize his pasture that doesn't mean that Farmer Jim right next door doesn't fertilize his. And that means that that runoff can very well get to that green. So you don't quite know unless you really know where you're getting your hay from, what it looks like, or your feed and things like that. So that's a really good point to bring up, because again, we try to feed our cows good quality over the winter so that we can really watch what we supplement and keep our costs down too. But they'll know too. They'll eat it. Sometimes animals really do know, and they know what's good and what's not. And our animals, that the animal test, the hay test for them is really helpful in the beginning of the season when we hand them a handful of hay and they turn their nose up or not. So yeah, it's important to know kind of where it's brought in and what you're getting at too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's smart too. I mean, the other thing too is you don't know what it maybe farmer Bob has had that farm 10 years. You don't know what was sprayed on those fields before he had them, because I thought that I'm sorry that I can't remember the name of it, but I thought there was a thing where you could be buying compost from somewhere you buy cow manure from somewhere, and it could be that the cows were given a certain medication or something like that. And then you take that manure, put it on your garden, and it still has that medication in there. And it kills your plants. I wish I could remember the name of it. I'm drawing a blank. Has anybody ever heard of that before?
Well, it can happen, especially if they have composted the manure, it's been in piles for years, it's heated up. A lot of that will leach out. But that's one of the reasons why I don't buy, our city has, you can get compost, or it's kind of like sludge, like stuff that they've mixed in. It kind of looks like compost, but it's got human waste in it. Now, I am not opposed to using human waste in a garden, because China has done it for 6,000 years, but now people take so many antibiotics, so many, we'll say recreational drugs, and it has to get composted to a certain temperature to kill all that. If it doesn't, you put it on your plants. It hasn't killed the herbicides, the pesticides. It hasn't killed those drugs. And if it doesn't kill your plant, it's uptaking into that plant and you're going to eat it. And so it's a balance, and you have to be careful. And so just because somebody says, oh, this is a good deal, you get a truckload for $10. Well, maybe not. It's maybe not a good deal. One of the other things I do in the fall, and I would recommend this to new gardeners, because there's always new gardeners. Get as many seed catalogs as you can. Not that I'm telling you to buy from all these different seed companies, but there are some really great information that you can learn about vegetables by just reading the seed catalog. Baker Seeds is a great one because they have regular articles about vegetables, but almost all of them will have little tidbits and tricks on growing and things to do. Because like this last summer, there was a whole bunch of people down at the community garden. They planted beans and the beans didn't grow. But the thing about beans, if you just put fertilizer into your soil and then you're trying to plant beans, they're probably never going to sprout, because the microorganisms do a chemical reaction with that fertilizer and none of the nutrients is going to those beans right away. You needed to put it on weeks before, and then you'll have your beans to sprout. So it's just things to learn. And you can learn a lot of those things from seed catalogs. Go to your library and check out a bunch of garden books and just see what you can learn. You have all winter, so why not?
I have to say, that's a good point that you made, Sandy. Before we actually moved on to our homestead, one thing that I really wanted, especially for myself, was to learn as many tips and tricks garden-wise, whether it was garden, whether it was canning, whether it was cooking, during the downtime, the winter time, that you're not as busy. I won't say that you're not working, but you're just not as busy, to learn these things and learn about, what fertilizers are good for plants, what nutrients, pumpkin plants need if you want to grow a healthy pumpkin plant. So I think that is important too. Reading the seed catalogs, watching YouTube videos while we still have YouTube, watching the YouTube videos from your favorite YouTubers that give out tips and tricks. There's a lot of, we've talked about our favorite homesteading books that we have, and there's a couple. And as I'm talking away from the microphone to see if I can remember the name, I know one is called the Homesteading Encyclopedia 101. Monica, was me and you the one that had that book? It is fabulous.
Yeah.
It is literally everything you need to know, not just about gardening, but about homesteading in general. You bust a water pipe, flip to the plumbing section. You are in a cold area and you need to knit a blanket. There is knitting patterns and how to do, knit yourself a blanket. It is so important. And that's why I was excited about this episode, because everybody's always like, oh, I want to start homesteading. Whether they see it from the glamorous Instagram world or whatever, you need to learn certain things before you go into this lifestyle. Otherwise, it will beat you down. I am a proven example of going into it thinking that everything was going to be perfect and smooth. And, oh, I saw Alicia do it on her video. I can do it. These tips and tricks you have to have, because it beats you down. You were saying like planting green beans and it doesn't sprout. That's really upsetting to, first-time gardeners. Then they're like, oh, it's not worth it anymore. And it really is worth it to grow your own veggies. It really is, but you got to learn.
Yeah, it's super upsetting when you plant something and it doesn't come out. You were talking about the beans and I was thinking about it. And I know we talk about Kelzyme a lot on here because we really do like Kelzyme.
We do.
But I was actually just talking to Stina today. And one of the things she mentioned was in the yard, I have spots that when they get water, they're kind of like hard areas in my yard. And when it rains, it puddles up in that area. And she said, you can put Kelzyme on that and it will help with that flocculation, which I was like, big word. But okay, so basically it'll help loosen up that soil, is what I'm understanding it kind of to mean. And it's going to help that water absorb into the soil more effectively so it won't puddle up like it does when we get massive like monsoon rain. I mean, it's going to puddle, but it's not. And when she said that, if my mind could have physically exploded in her face, it literally would have. Like, I was like, what? Like, I had to like shut my mouth physically with my hand because I couldn't believe what she said. And she was like, yeah, that's what's amazing about this, is that it's natural and you can literally just sprinkle the Kelzyme over that patch of land, because it's basically just like a dirt pit that basically just gets water and it always sits there, and the ducks go over and they muck it up and it sits. But I was thinking about that when you were talking about the beans. Whenever you're doing anything, you need to pay attention to what you're putting in and around your vegetables or your whatever plants, whether it's trees or whatever you're planting, and pay attention. And honestly, I highly recommend looking into things like Kelzyme, where it's a natural product to help the uptake. It's going to help break up that, do the flocculation stuff that's happening, that chemistry that's there. And it's really going to help all of it. So, you can put other natural things on it, but I don't know why you would want to beyond the Kelzyme. But I mean, like, it sounds really silly that I'm always talking about this, but there's a reason. It's kind of neat.
Really
so shut the front door.
I was about to say, Sandy, have you tried Kelzyme?
I haven't.
I think we may need to talk to our peeps, our sponsors, about giving Sandy some Kelzyme to try.
Yeah, she'll send you some samples. You need to talk to Stina about sending you a sample, because
I'll try Sandy, Monica, and I need to go in on a super sack of it.
I got the prices today.
Yeah.
Text me.
You can share later. Yeah, no, needless to say, it's amazing. You can use it in so many places. And then FYI, we were standing there talking, and we have rainwater catch here. And I know, Sandy, you get, I mean, you go back and forth between places. Do you have a rainwater catchment at your
we do. Yeah.
Both places, or just one?
No, just in Wyoming. It's a thunderstorm if we get 1/16 of an inch in Arizona when I'm there. So they don't even have rain gutters. So
yeah. Well, we do rain catchment here, and one of the things that a lot of people do is they put the black tarp over. They like wrap those big totes and IBC totes with the black tarp to keep the algae down. Ain't nobody got time for that here. Like, I don't have time for that mess. And I mean, it's real, like, everybody that does it, that's awesome. And I am not discounting anything anybody does, but I don't have time for that. I just don't have time right now. So one of the things, as I was standing there talking to the Calzyme rep, and I'm just going to say it and I'll be done with Calzyme, is that she literally looked at me and she was like, yeah, the algae, she's like, if you can use Calzyme in your water. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, you can put Calzyme in those totes and it'll clean up that algae. And I was like, it'll clean up my algae. And she was like, yeah.
Would you ask her if I could put it in my hydroponics?
Yes, you can.
Oh, wow.
Challenge accepted.
You have to buy the micronized version,
Yep.
which is in powder form. So that way it is accessible to your plants so they can uptake it. Whereas the other form, it's the one with the light green bag.
Yeah, you have the granules and then you have the micronized, but either way, they're both helpful and you can put them on anywhere. The granules are more time release, so it's a longer period. So you can put the granules on your trees or your beans. If you're putting beans in the ground, sprinkle your granules on there. Try different things. And the idea here is just try new things. And if you haven't tried it, you should try it. And I'm going to get off my Calzyme soapbox. Thanks.
You can put it in your water for your chickens. You can do all kinds of stuff with it, and it's natural.
Can you tell that we love Calzyme?
I can tell.
Yeah, and it's not even that they have to give us. I mean, it's not about free stuff. It's mainly about I will spend money on Calzyme because it is very much worth it to us right now.
Me too. Yes.
Because it basically helps the uptake of when you said uptake, immediately my thought was, oh, that's what Stina always says. That's what she was talking about in general and why plants grow better with that at their base. So that's one of the things I'm putting in my fall garden, and it's always with me outside at my garden ready.
Yeah. One other thing I would say to new gardeners, find the resources that you have right where you live. There are master gardeners, there's old time gardeners, there's extension offices. These people are wealths of knowledge. And, like I have tried and tried and tried to grow certain plants here in Wyoming. They're southern plants. And I just have a hard time. They can grow for a while. They never like lupins. I can get great plants. Once in a while, I can get them to flower, and it'll be a great summer and it'll look fabulous. And then the next year, all it is a plant, So people that have gardened in your area for a long time, they can give you that information. They can be sounding boards, I'd like to grow this plant. Have you had any experience in that? And use their wisdom, because gardeners will share everything they know with somebody else, especially with a new gardener.
That's a great point, Sandy. And I'd like to absolve you of your not guilt, but what's the word? The heaviness you feel because the lupins didn't grow. Because I've been trying for years, and the worst part about it is they grow in Maine, on the side of the road, in the worst soil ever. And I was convinced everywhere I've lived, I've had the worst soil ever. So it's been great. I thought I could grow lupins, nothing. So I'm sorry you can't grow lupin.
Well, every once in a while, because I try all the time because I like them.
I do too.
Every once in a while, that'll be the perfect summer and I can get them to flower. But otherwise, it's just usually the plant.
It's funny. I had someone sent me seeds from Ontario, Canada, and they sent me a bunch of seeds, and in there were lupin. And I was like, oh, this just brings back memories of all the times I've tried to grow lupin. I was so proud, Sandy. I had a seedling here. It was beautiful. I put it outside. I hardened it off. I put a little tomato cage around it, wrapped chicken wire to keep my chickens away from it. I put it in the ground and it died.
Well,
I have an
well,
honest question though, Lisa. Was that with Kelzyme?
It had Kelzyme for the seedling, but not outside.
I wonder if Kelzyme would make a difference. It'd be a great,
Experiment.
a little experiment to do.
Mhm.
I know. And you know me, I Kelzyme everything.
So I wanted to piggyback off what Sandy said about finding someone that is, a gardener that's been there and done that, especially in your area. That goes along with any of the other homesteading things, whether it's gardening, whether it's animals, whether it's whatever you're doing on your homestead or in your apartment stead or whatever you're doing. If you are growing your own food, if you're growing anything, or you're even doing, because homesteading isn't just growing your own food, it's actually being able to be home based in all of your things. So if you're doing certain textiles and you're crocheting and you're making a business that way and you're doing things, you're crafty like Sandy, doing other things, you're finding other ways to maybe make an income or just doing something from your house. Find people that have like-minded interests, find those mentors, find those people that can come alongside you. And not just, it's not about people telling you what to do. It's about telling you what they've done and their experiences and sharing that and coming alongside of you and saying, hey, you know what? You can plant 18 cucumber plants. That's going to be great. But I've planted 18 and I was overloaded and my fingers hurt and I smell like cucumbers and all that. And they share their wisdom and they share their knowledge. And if you go do and make the same mistake, that's on you. But the idea is that they share that wisdom and you have people that give you that mentorship and that love. And yeah, I'm throwing shade on Casey right now.
I was about to say, this story sounds very, very familiar. Sandy, you actually were with us last
It's like
season.
deja vu in here.
Sandy was with us when we were discussing it. I think we did in the spring when we shot our episode. And I said I was going to do 17 cucumber plants. And Alicia thought that was traumatic and said I was crazy. And I still did it.
She had like an eye twitch. She was starting to twitch her eye.
And I had like 4 billion pounds of cucumbers this year. I was so tired of cucumbers like the third day. Yeah. Now I'm very grateful. I have canned them. They are beautiful, delicious pickles. But if I would have listened to my advisor about that many, and Alicia, friend, you only had like 3 plants, right?
I believe I planted 4. And I had cucumbers just coming out of my ears. They would literally be tiny little cucumbers when I'd feed the chickens in the morning. I'd go check on them in the afternoon and I'd have 20 fully mature cucumbers just hanging from the cattle panels. It's like, I just picked all of you yesterday. And they just kept multiplying. I couldn't keep up with them. And so when Casey said 17, it's like, friend, you're going to be sorry.
Now I did
But
listen.
Casey,
I did 10. I ended up.
You don't need
10.
to plant any now.
No, and I actually even tried when we did the collaboration with Sandy on the messy gardening. I wasn't going to till or do anything in that area. I was just going to do it. No weed eating, nothing. And I'm like, there is no way these cucumbers are going to grow in this. And I even cut one of the vines off of the cucumber and rooted it and put it in that. I got another 400 pounds of cucumbers from one that I did not even touch. Like the only watering it got was from the rain. And it still gave me enough pickles to feed a small country.
Well, I would say, and it doesn't have to be someone that's older than you. Always remember that it's not something. Experience doesn't always come with age. Experience comes with the time and energy that someone puts into something. So I have young children here and I am always asking them questions about the animals that they're raising or that the things that they're doing, because I don't know all the things. My kids have more experience in certain areas. I have a 14-year-old that knows more about some of the animals than I do. And so if somebody asks me on one of our Thursday night lives, hey, Monica, what about this? And I'm like, I don't know. I need to ask my 14-year-old because he has more experience with some of these animals than I do. My daughter has a vast amount of experience with rabbits. she's 17 years old and she knows more about these animals and how to care for them than a lot of adults do. And so it doesn't mean that they're older people. They're just more experienced people with experience, and that it comes a lot of wisdom, and it doesn't mean they're older. It just means they have that time. So yeah, find those people and let them, help you and come alongside them. Because it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And I don't want to discourage somebody and, everybody around them says, no, you can't grow that. That doesn't mean that you can't try to grow that. Maybe you have a microclimate in your area. When we moved to Wyoming and bought our house, they told me I couldn't grow peaches. And I thought, well, why can't I grow peaches? And so I have peaches in my yard, but I have to do some stuff to make it so that I have peaches, because it's cold here, 2 feet of mulch in the fall time to make it so that they don't bloom till later in the spring because that soil stayed cold, helps me, Now, if we have a snowstorm in the middle of May, I'm just not going to get peaches no matter what I do. But, I've had those 3 along the terrace. Gosh, I think I've had those 6 years now or more. And so those trees have survived Wyoming winters.
That's awesome. I have to say that was one of the first things, or not really the first things, but it's probably one of my favorite things you said on our previous episode was the microclimate thing. When you described how, you can try to grow things, you may have different microclimates in your area. And I thought that was really cool to think about growing something in my zone and not have it something that would normally be grown, because I have been discouraged by other people. I've literally had people look at me and say, oh, you're not going to grow anything in that soil. And I just laughed and it was like, okay. And Eric was like, yeah, watch us. And we've tried growing things and they've failed, but we're not stopping. And like you said, with was it the looping, whatever that is, you're trying to grow it and you're not giving up because it's something that you want to try, you want to see. And so try again, and maybe you'll succeed one day. Maybe you'll just hit it at that sweet spot. It'll be that one time. But, I think that's important, and to think about making sure that if you want to try something, go for it, because you never know if it's actually going to work or not.
Yeah. Take the advice from other people. But sometimes gardeners have this spirit within them that is experimental. It's just in us, and we want to try things and we want to do things. And here where I live, we have an urban orchard, and anybody from town can go out and pick the fruit. That's what it's for. It doesn't cost you anything. And I think we have like 28, 29 trees now. And I had just finished reading this book from 1947 and how they were growing some fruit trees, and they were putting lattice up above them, above the tree, and then they attached the branches, and so the fruit literally hung down, and they were doing it on pairs. Well, we have this new apple tree out there. It's a Honeycrisp, and I showed them today, and I said, can I do this to this tree? And so they said yes. And so I am going to build one of those lattice things, and I'll have some videos, and I'm going to attach the branches on it, and we are going to see how it works.
That's great. That's great. I mean, we've been gardening here for 3 years. So, it's like if I gave up, and I'll be honest, the only driver for me is growing my own food. I could live without gardening. That's me. It's not something I like. It's not something I enjoy, but I am driven to grow my own food. And so it's funny because Ryan is the opposite. He loves it. He likes gardening. He's been completely discouraged about growing here because he's just like, he says to me, it's a waste of time. So I took over this year and grew things, but it's like, we had a better year this year for the 3rd year. We had something, some things are great, some things aren't, but now we know the greenhouse is the answer. The greenhouse is going to give us the tomatoes. The greenhouse is going to give us the peppers, because my pepper plants are 3 feet tall, loaded with bell peppers. We've never been able to get a bell pepper here. My outdoor one, because what I did was I have some that are outdoors and some that are in the greenhouse. The outdoor one is just getting flowers on it, and it's about 1.5 feet tall. So, it's clearly the microclimate. So between the elevation, the dryness, all that kind of thing. So yeah, I agree. You have to keep going. Otherwise you're never, ever going to learn anything. And that's what's important.
And
Yeah,
I think
and
it's like, I'm sorry, Sandy, go ahead.
in Wyoming, we're so windy, so there
Yeah.
are certain plants that I have to block the wind if I really want a good harvest. And so you just have to know where your sun's going across, where the wind's coming from, and what can you do to help those plants.
I was going to hit on the point of Lisa talking about the successes and the trials, and all of us have those. And I think that's an important thing. Like what we're talking about is these homesteading knowledge that we're sharing today is, we have the one Facebook page where we have all these people coming in and they want to homestead. And Casey says it all the time. You see that Instagram homestead, you see the really good, everything's perfect videos. And this is where it is so important to know that life isn't like that. Lisa's saying she doesn't love gardening, but she does it because she wants to be self-sustainable with her food. Not everything we do on a homestead is a love affair.
Yeah.
It is a love-hate relationship, but we're all going towards the same goal, is that self-sustainability. And I really think it's so important because I do hear Casey say it all the time. Many people are coming into this realm of wanting to homestead with this romantic notion. I was one of them, but there's a reality to it. And so don't give up. Find alternative methods. Lisa's trying now for, this is her third year, like she said, gardening where she is. It took her 2 years of trial and error before she found the one light bulb moment. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the greenhouse. This works here. Or it might not work for somewhere else. Somewhere else, that greenhouse might just end up ultimately cooking all of the plants inside because of the climate they're in. Yeah. So whether it's your garden, whether it's your animals, whether it's something else that you're doing, and we're talking about this homestead knowledge, flexibility is key. You have to be flexible and you have to be tenacious. You have to continue on until you find that right blend.
Totally tenacious, because I like meat chickens in my freezer. I don't care for meat chickens in my yard. They're gross. I'm just being real. But so I'm not just throwing shade on gardening. It's the same thing. I meat chickens. Why do I do it? Cheap, easy way to fill the freezer, have meat for the year. Not fond of them. They're disgusting. But again, I like growing my own food. Same thing with going out at, when it's -30 wind chill in the middle of the winter, 2 feet of snow, I'm going to go out and feed my animals. It's like, you have to be tenacious, because otherwise it's gonna wear you down.
It is completely. And Alicia's just talking about greenhouse stuff. It's a prime example of how in Lisa's climate, greenhouse is the saving grace. I know me and Monica are both in zone 8A. Yeah. My greenhouse is not a saving grace. It has killed more things than I can count. And I'm just in my first year on the homestead. Honestly, if Lisa Boothing was close enough, I'd be like, you and Ryan, come get this greenhouse. Come get this 55-foot greenhouse out of my yard. But literally, because it's
on
does
my way.
Nothing. It literally does nothing but block a space that I could turn into something else. And going through the year of learning what does well on your homestead is important. Don't give up after the first year. I was there. This year, I was like, is this what I'm really supposed to be doing? Is this what I want, what I love to do? Or is this just something that I saw, Sarah and Kevin do it on YouTube, and now I want to do it, that kind of thing. Give it the year, give it 2 years, like Lisa was talking about with her garden. And Lisa, you come pick that greenhouse up tomorrow. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll be there. But that's the thing. You end up, with your you have heat and humidity. Tomatoes love heat and humidity. Cucumbers love heat and humidity. Peppers love it. I don't have humidity. The other thing is I don't have a lot of heat. I mean, our spring was in the 70s. There were no plants growing. It was great for humans, but it wasn't doing much for gardens, and then we went up in the 90s and the plants thrived. But even when my greenhouse that has a roof vent, that cheap little thing I have, and it has a door vent, I leave it open all day long and I close it every night. And usually I close it at night. And the only reason why I remember to do that is because I let my chickens out and then those rat finks want to get in there. So, but you, Casey, you literally have to worry about adjusting temperature because you're already so hot. I don't have that because usually our days are in the 80s. So if the greenhouse brings it up to 100, the plants are like, yeah, I like this. And then it goes down in the 50s at night,
Yeah. Well,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just thinking how Casey and Lisa are both saying that this is my first year, this is my third year. And homesteading is not a sprint. It is a long haul. It's the marathon. And I see people that want to start a homestead and they want to do everything right away. That first year or two, they want to add this and they want to do this and they want to do that. And then it's total burnout. And so if you can write down, okay, this is a goal for 6 months. This is a goal for a year. This is a goal for 5 years. This is a goal for 10 years. And you get to learn and you're not so stressed and you get to enjoy those moments. I think it's healthier for you as a homesteader. That it's, what is your goal? Like Joe and I literally have a mission statement. What do we want to do in the property that we have? And sometimes I get a little off track and I have to come back and I have to say, are these things meeting the goals that we have for our homestead? And so don't look at homesteading as this, oh, it's going to be fabulous. The angels will be singing. It is a lot of hard work, but it is very rewarding and totally worth it.
I think if I can relate to what you're saying, Sandy, and I'm sure that some of the listeners will relate as well, and I know Monica will. I have 4 children. I always wanted to have 4 children. Thank God I didn't have all 4 children at one time because I would be overwhelmed, because even though that was my desire and that was my plan, they were spaced out. I learned a lot along the way. And by the time the 4th one was there, I had it down pat. Monica, 8 children. Could you imagine if you would have had them all at one time, Monica? You would be completely overwhelmed. It would have just been entirely just a gut-wrenching process. But having them spaced out, learning as you go, it's the same for your homestead. That homestead is your baby. And don't overload too much on it. Like you said, Sandy, you're going to get burnt out real quick. And things in nature are a wonderful thing to learn from. That's why we have things like succession planting and, getting those multiple crops from one plant. It doesn't all happen at one time because it's just going to be overwhelming and overpowering. And you're going to get that garden flu real quick, or you're going to get homestead flu real quick. And I when you were saying, I was just thinking about how it relates to children. We all have wonderful plans for families, but thank goodness it doesn't all happen in one day.
Well, I will say, by the time I haven't been gardening that long, I've been gardening for about 10 years off and on. And, we moved from Maryland. So I went from one climate to another, went from one zone to another. That was definitely different. I had to readjust, but it's my 8th season here planting in Texas. And I will say that, like my 8th child, I've grown to learn things that I pick my battles.
Yes.
When it comes to my youngest, I choose my battles. And when it comes to my garden or my homestead, I choose my battles, just like the weed or non-weeded garden areas. There are so many areas that are overgrown. And I'm like, hey, good job. You're growing, but I don't care. There's weeds around you. And it looks like you don't care either, mister. I've got watermelons that I never planted. I never planted one single watermelon seed this year. I have like 8 volunteer seeds that have just blown up in my garden, and they're all in the non-weeded section. They were like, hey lady, thanks for not messing with us over here. We're going to take over this whole area. And so, I've really learned to choose my battles. And, you were talking about starting off goals and things like that. I taught a homestead basics class this weekend with Eric, and we really just broke it down into about 8 different points that as a homesteader, whether you're just starting or whether you've been starting for a few years, there's so many things you need to pay attention to. And, knowing your goal, knowing your what, knowing your why, that's super important, because if you have a why you're doing it and you know what you're doing it for, and you have the mission, you have some kind of something out in front of you, then you have kind of a goal. You have something to push forward to, and there's a reality there. When I've been pregnant in the past, all the stuff that I went through to get to that end goal was miserable. Like, I would never say to you, oh my goodness, my pregnancies were amazing. They were awesome. And every single day was super. No, I literally throw up every single day for like 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. Like, it was bad. It was really bad some days. But the goal and the end outcome and the reward at the end was so worth it. And that's the same with our gardens. That's the same with our animals. And it is so rewarding when you have that animal that you've, basically raised from the time it's been born all the way to the end of its life. And you've loved it from every second it's been with you. And now it's in your freezer and you're still going to thoroughly enjoy it. Or whether it's those peppers that you never thought you were going to grow, but you're only 3 years in, and you've got these magnificent peppers in your greenhouse, wherever it's growing. And it speaks to it too. Casey, you and I are not giving up on our greenhouse yet. I was in my greenhouse today because I went in there to grab something. It was 130 degrees in my greenhouse. I was like, oh, ouch. That's a little hot.
I was going to say same here.
But that greenhouse, I still don't know how to use it. And at the end of the winter, earlier in the spring this year, I looked at the greenhouse and I was so discouraged and I was so upset. And I told Eric, oh my gosh, I didn't even use my greenhouse, but for some storage. And he was like, yeah, we could probably use it this year for more than just storing things, Monica. And he kind of chuckled. And I felt super discouraged for that minute. And then I realized, you know what? That was my first season. Give me a break. I'm going to give myself a break. I'm going to choose my battle and know that I'm going to rock it this year. And if I still suck it up this year, I'm going to kill it the next year, because I'm not giving up on that tool, because that garden tool is mine that God gave me. I'm going to learn how to use it right.
Now's the time for you to start planting seedlings to get them ready, because in your climate, I don't want to say, oh, I know your climate or your zone, but what I'm saying is you saw me, I started planting stuff in there back in March. It didn't do anything for a long time, but boy, I tell you, come around May, we had some spinach, and so that now's the time for you to get in there, because if you think about it, what's your December daytime highs down there?
I don't know, like 60.
Yeah, 50, 60.
You'll be growing in your greenhouse in December, no problem.
Casey, do you want to grow some lettuce in our greenhouses?
Well, let's hope that my lettuce does better this year.
In the winter? Let's do winter lettuce, right?
We should.
I bet you we could grow it.
Well, I have to do some carrots and cabbage. Remember egg rolls, Monica? I've been tasked with growing egg rolls.
But that's outdoor stuff, man. Don't put that in your garden. Don't put that in your greenhouse.
Well, why not put some broccoli in your greenhouse?
Yeah, because it's so hot right now. It's just going to burn everything up.
Right.
But we can plant it outside and put the warm weather stuff inside the greenhouse. Okay, I'm going to have to try that. Sandy, what do you think?
I just planted. Oh, go ahead, Sandy.
Oh, sorry.
I think you should probably start growing in your greenhouse at the end of October, and grow all the way until February or March. And you could grow, you have big greenhouses, grow tons of stuff, all your cool weather, grow your, you can probably grow about anything you can imagine in that greenhouse during those months.
But it does freeze here though. And like, if we don't keep the greenhouse warm, it will freeze my stuff. So I do have a heater.
Yeah, and then at nighttime, just cover with, the row covers, because that's what I do in mine. I mean, we'll get snow and I'm just out there covering it with row cover and then covering it with blankets at night. And in the morning, I take it off.
Oh, I'm going to try it.
I had Swiss
wanna try
chard in
too.
I had Swiss chard in my greenhouse last year. Snow on the ground. It wasn't covered. I had it away from the walls of the greenhouse, and it did just fine. And I just planted today spinach and more Swiss chard to put in the greenhouse. Now, mind you, my greenhouse is a nightmare because it's still packed full of my summer vegetables, but I'm doing it. And I put saran wrap on top of the pots that I'm growing it in just to give the seeds some heat and keep the moisture in. But for me, I learned a lot better with my greenhouse doing it rogue style when it was cold outside. And I learned valuable lessons about when I can plant stuff.
I will say that I have been studying on what, Monica, me and you can have over the summer. I didn't want to talk about it too much just because I just didn't know too much about it. But I think we may need to have some lemon, lime, and orange trees in our greenhouse.
So we had a lemon tree. We got 2 lemon trees from Jake over at Nunya Tex on the back 20, a YouTuber. And he was super gracious. He gave Eric 2 lemon trees. Eric put them in our greenhouse last year to get them out of the cool weather, put them in the greenhouse. And wouldn't you know it, before we could get the greenhouse heated, they both got like cold. So I was pretty sure one died right away. So we lost one right away. And then he brought the other one out and it was doing great in the spring. And then somehow over the summer, it just died. Like it's like like brown sticks. And I'm like, oh, at least it wasn't my fault. But yeah, I want lemon and lime trees too. So we need to go back and try something again.
In Nebraska, there's a greenhouse. They've had it for over 20 years. They use geothermal and they grow every citrus you can imagine. And it gets 40 below zero.
Wow.
So there's things that are possible with a greenhouse. Yeah, you just got to play with it.
We do.
Absolutely.
We need
Wendy at Hardneck Farms has a geothermal greenhouse, but I do know that there's some things that you can do to retain the heat at night. I'm not going to get into that, but like there's things where you can heat up water, or you could have cement blocks in there that absorb the heat and stuff like that.
We usually take our ash bucket from our fireplace and we stick it out there at night. So we run the fireplace. We run our wood stove all season. We don't actually have electric heat that we use. So we're constantly running the fireplace. So when it does get cold enough, we take our ash bucket at nighttime, our metal ash bucket, stick it on the rocks because we have rocks inside of our garden, side of our greenhouse. And that was able to keep the temperature up nice and warm for quite a while until it started to get freezing temperatures here in Texas earlier this year. And then we had to turn on a propane heater. But I will say that the ash bucket from our fireplace, from our wood stove, did it for a while. So, yeah.
Well, it's going to be exciting this upcoming season for us to try it. We've heard so many tips and tricks, and I also have taken notes, of course, like we always do with Sandy here. Then now I know who to go to talk about peach trees because my peach trees aren't doing well. But let's go ahead and hear a little bit more from our sponsor, the Homesteading Academy.
So many of us are seeking a return to simpler life, a homesteading lifestyle, hobby farming, seeking self-sustainability on so many different levels. And many of us are doing that these days due to world events. And many of us are starting to find out that growing up in urban settings or never having been involved in farming to begin with are learning that we have so much to learn. But where do we find all of this information? Well, I'm here to tell you we have an exciting new series where experienced homesteaders teach new homesteaders the skills and information they need to know. Welcome to the Homesteading Academy. Education for homesteaders by homesteaders. Be sure to tune in for the Homesteading Academy with me, Lisa from Yogi Hello Farm, and make sure you hit that notification bell on our channel. We do post them regularly.
All righty. Well, thank you for stopping by the Hay Bale. Thanks so much also to Sandy for joining us again here on the Hay Bale. It has been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure. And if you want to find out more about Sandy, be sure to click our Linktree link in our description box below.
If you're enjoying our third season of the podcast, add us to your favorite by pressing the plus or follow button.
And remember, rating the podcast and leaving us comments helps us grow, and we really appreciate it.
Alrighty, friends. We will see you on the next week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us.